views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis.
Hey guys, welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me, Mr. Oh, normally I announce you, but I was going to be nice and step aside and let you announce yourself. But I guess you don't want to.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me you were going to do that.
I know, right? It's a night of surprises.
No, actually, what was funny is I thought maybe that you were mocking me from my show on Monday. Because I always pause, right? I'm like, with me as always, my co-host, and I pause really quickly for that suspenseful...
No, it's Mike O'Neill's with me.
What it was... like my co-host, Mr. Dave Sawyering.
What it was is I was looking at the board really quick, look at the numbers of a few things that are going on, just to make sure everything is working correctly in Radioland, and it is. So, welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. Stop! Shut up, Mike! I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. Tonight we have a great show on tap. We're going on a tour. Not just any tour tonight. We're going on a tour of the Bridgewater Triangle. We have a couple great guests top of next hour. And you're going to be it's really cool. It's a very interesting little piece of America that maybe you didn't even know existed. It's creepy as hell. Okay, Mike, how you doing, man?
Fine.
Good.
Very, very good. How about yourself?
I'm a little mad.
You don't say.
I'm just a tinge angry. I found out that the Lysol shooters I've been doing for this whole virus thing, they're bad for you, right? Not to mention that the Pine Sol shooters, which I love those. Those are always great. They give me a nice pine scent that I enjoy at the end. But what's worse
Women love that lumberjack smell.
I kind of like that, just a little bit. Reminds me of better days during Christmas. Come on, everyone loves that. And then I also found out that blowing sunshine up your ass is not going to cure it either. So there we are.
Vitamin D is not antiviral.
No, unfortunately, it's not. And then we also found out that the meat packing plants, slaughterhouses, are all out to kill us as well. Or at least themselves.
No.
They're out to kill themselves more than us.
They're out to kill themselves.
By proxy, if they kill themselves, they kill us because, well, they only provide us with meat to eat, you see.
So what you're saying is that if the meat packing plants go down, the vegetarians win.
Wow, I don't want to go that far because there's no scenario here that the vegetarians would win. God bless them. But there's just no scenario on the table.
But if they form an alliance with the vegans, they might have a chance.
Well, yeah, but they're too weak to do anything. Really, they are. I mean, God bless them, like I said, but they're just too physically weak to do anything.
I don't know. They're probably in better shape than you and I.
Well, yes, that's probably true. I mean, they do have the Whopper now, that Impossible Whopper, which
plants.
Have you tried the Impossible Whopper?
I have not. I've actually not had a Whopper in months.
Are you losing weight or something?
No, I'm majorly gaining it. It's not.
That's the crappy part about this quarantine or stay-at-home order, or whatever you guys want to call it. Everybody's ballooning up. A lot of people are. They're gaining weight. That's the chief complaint right now, aside from the economy, is that we're just sitting in our houses watching Netflix and eating incessantly.
Mm-hmm. I don't eat incessantly, but I don't have... when I worked at the trucking company back, before October, half my shift was all up and down the stairs, run here, run there. I always had something, and then I still went to the gym. Now I have my own company where I'm not there anymore, So now it's just the gym, and now the gym's shut down, and now I'm left to my own accord to figure out how to do it here, and that is just not working for me.
No, you don't have a in-home gym.
No, I don't.
Neither do I. I have a treadmill, but it holds more clothes than it does me.
Well, there's a weight limit on a treadmill, from what I understand.
No, I'm well within that. Thank you very much. Gee, talk about hitting. You know, you're also a man of girth. So
Is that what? is that what we call ourselves?
Well, I can't call you
Men of
fat.
girth?
That would not be nice.
Really? Okay. So you want to use the technical terms so you don't feel like you're being mean.
I'm also one of them men, so don't worry. I'm right there in that same boat. And I would imagine our listeners are going, our listeners are going right now, what the hell did I just tune into? What the hell is wrong with these people?
The same thing they get every week?
Every single week there's something wrong with this guy over there. You know,
well, I'm glad you just talked about yourself.
We actually have a lot of paranormal stories to get to. Great stories you guys sent in. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, we're all getting through this thing together. But there is a promise. You had mentioned this to me the other day, that there's a promising cure on the horizon. You care to talk about that a little bit? Or at least a treatment, rather, not a cure.
I was going to say, is that a cure? I haven't turned on the news today, so I don't know if it's gone anywhere. But I can't pronounce it. It's kind of like rendezvous. Kind of in
Did you say rendezvous?
I said it's kind of like the word rendezvous. It's like Rendezaven or something like that. It's some medical term. I have no idea. Never heard it before. I doubt anybody has. But it's an antiviral, and even Dr. Fauci says that there is very, very strong evidence that this works against, COVID-19. But it's not. It's pretty much. It's not going to prevent you from getting it. What it is going to be, from what I understand, and they're about to go into, testing now to see if it actually works. Trials. That's what I want to say. Medical trials.
I hope that remdesivir actually does work.
So you knew the name the whole time.
I did. I just like to hear you struggle. But
you're a very, very awful person.
I'm evil. I am evil. But I really hope judgmental. Wow, listen to you. God, I hope that this is the
your
game.
list of accolades grows.
It just does. After all these years of doing the show, it's just it's just horrible. But actually, we all kidding aside, this could be a game changer that they're looking for, and I sure pray it is, because we need some help. If something has to give here. Something has to get better. I just know it will be. It's just a matter of time. I just hope it's rather sooner rather than later kind of thing going on. Yeah. So just like everybody else hopes that same thing. Now, meanwhile, our governor, if you live in the state of Minnesota, look on the internet for your own state. So if you're listening, you're going to have to check this up yourselves, your own state. But our governor has extended our stay-at-home order. If you are listening from the great state of Minnesota, we have a lot of listeners from Minnesota. In case you have not heard, Governor Tim Walz has extended stay-home order till the 18th of May, but he has opened up some retail establishments to do only curbside pickup. So, like, for instance, if you're a hair salon, you can still sell a product as long as it's hair on curbside, but they're not offering haircuts curbside, so that kind of thing. That would be funny, though, if they did. Just show
you
up.
Just stick your head out the window and somebody comes out and just buzzes you real quick.
Just buzzes you down fast. Hey, you're good. All right.
Only full head shaves.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm good at those. I'm really good at those. Being bald is easy.
I tried that. It's not a good look on me.
No. Well, you got to have a certain kind of shape of head.
I think so.
You can't have.
Or maybe I'm just not used to it.
You can't have a pinhead. Now, I've seen that go down. It's not pretty.
I don't know what I would consider my head. My head is small.
Well, bald is beautiful.
Compared to the rest of my girthy body.
So you're saying you're kind of like that character off of Puppet Master? You ever see that movie? where he's got this
Not for a
giant
very,
body
very
and
long
this
time.
itty bitty little head. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not like Goomba
Oh,
type head.
not that bad. Oh,
Not that bad.
Okay.
That's pretty bad.
So anyhow, let's give these folks what they came for, Mike. Now that the
Us?
babbling is done for a minute, and trust me, there will be more babbling, but we will try to keep it to a minimum.
No, we won't.
First,
Sorry.
the first
All right,
person,
first story.
Anna writes in. So in the middle of the quarantine, only mom can leave the house to buy food. And yesterday morning around 9 a.m., she said she was going to go buy some food for lunch. And she said she might be coming home a bit late. And then she left. Well, that's good. I'm glad she clarified it. I was watching TV while eating breakfast, and 30 minutes later I saw Mom enter the house empty-handed. I tried talking to her, but she would not respond. She just continued to walk in until she entered her bedroom. I just ignored it because I thought maybe she was just changing clothes. And at around 11 a.m., she just arrived carrying some meat and vegetables that she had just bought from the market. And I was really confused because I remember her coming home before. I explained to her about it, and she also had no idea. So I let her enter her bedroom to see her doppelganger. Gee, that's funny. Hey, Mom, why don't you go check your bedroom? Bet you there's a big surprise in there. She opens the door, and she saw nobody. There was no one in her bedroom at all, and also her bedroom stayed the same as it was before she left. This left her confused, and she said that I was just having hallucinations or just being crazy. Wow. Well, that's classic doppelganger. There's a lot of paranormal stories about doppelgangers, and most of them do just that, where you can try to engage them in conversation or anything, and they just ignore you and just keep going. Right, Mike?
I'm still trying to comprehend that I said I wanted odds and you read odd.
Oh, I did.
I'm upset.
Odd, did I? Well, you can have the next one, and then 3 if you want it.
Sweet. Okay, so as I was reading this one, I actually, I think, and this is I don't know how this happens, and I don't think anybody does, because it's a very rare occurrence of a time slip where people witness, as if it's very, very real, things that happen at a different time, whether in the future or whether in the past. And I think that this might have been one of those. I mean, I think she was seeing her mother at some other time, that when she came through the door, she walked into her bedroom for whatever reason. And it would also explain why she didn't respond to her, because they're, for all intents and purposes, residual.
So
it has no consciousness to it.
You are saying that she is haunting herself in a residual manner.
No,
because
I don't think it happened. I don't think it happened. You have a story about somebody haunting themselves?
I haunted myself.
I can see that.
I did.
Actually.
It was the strangest thing ever. I was living in the southern part of the United States, and I used to get up every morning at 2 a.m. to go down to the station, because at this time I did a morning show. And I get up, and then I happened to have a week off. It was vacation time, thank God. I didn't have to get up at 2 a.m. anymore to get down there and get ready by 5 a.m. for airtime. And I got up, went to the bathroom, because it's 2 a.m. here, and I'm telling you, I ran into myself getting ready for work.
That must have been creepy.
It was creepy. It was just a split second, though. Wasn't like forever. It wasn't like this, where I saw myself and tried to converse with myself. It was more like maybe 2-3 seconds I saw myself. But I think the repetitive nature.
Like, damn, you handsome.
I'm like, that's believe it or not, that's the first thing I said. Damn, I look good.
My, how the times have changed.
No wonder why they're all after me. Man, I would be too. Look at that. But,
I can see that, actually.
But there's a lot of weird things that have happened to me. Heck, I could tell my own story. I got a story for you if you want to hear a story. One for me.
This is story hour.
This is story hour. I was working at a country music radio station years ago. And I was the overnight guy. And working overnight in radio is a lot like being in purgatory. You're not quite in hell, but you're damn near close. So I'm working the overnights in this country radio station, and it was country to boot. And it was Sunday morning, and every Sunday we had he was once a real cowboy, real bronc buster, rodeo kind of guy. His name is Roy. And he used to do On the Trail with Cowboy Roy Music Hour, where he would play the old classic country. You know the type I'm talking about. Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, all that good stuff. Really good, honest-to-goodness country music. So my shift is ending. I put my final set on because I'd run an extra long set to let him settle in before he did his thing. So I put my last set on, and I'd always go talk to Roy in the break room. And so that morning was no exception. I saw him come in. He always wore his Texas Rangers hat and everything else because he's a big baseball fan. Talked to Roy he was a tall guy, about 6'5", 6'6", older guy in his 80s. Come in, the first thing he says is, "How's it going, partner?" Like he always said to me every morning, every time. And I said, "It's going good, Roy. How about you?" And of course, he talked a little bit about baseball because he's a big Texas Ranger fan, like I'd said. And the Texas Rangers were doing exceptionally well that year. And he was hoping that they would actually go somewhere in the playoffs. So we talked for, I would say, a good 5 minutes. And he said, "Well, I got to hit the trail," which he always would say before he'd go into the studio. And I didn't think anything of it. Grabbed my stuff, went downstairs, and our general manager, Dennis, was there. And he was never there on the weekends. Like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of guy. But there he was, that early in the morning. I'm talking, this is like 6 a.m. So I said, "Dennis, what are you doing here?" And he stops, he looks at me, he says, you didn't hear, did you?" And I said, "No, I didn't hear anything." He says, "Roy died last night asleep. I'm here to cover a shift." And I said, "Bull crap. He's up." See, I thought for sure he's messing with me. And I said, "No, Roy's upstairs. Nice try. And let's go prove it. We're going to go upstairs. I'm going to prove this to you." So we go upstairs because he's really insisting Roy is dead to me. "No, Roy is dead. Roy is dead." So we go upstairs, and it's a second floor studio. So we go upstairs, and we get to the studio where Roy is supposed to be, and it's empty.
Yep.
So then I turn white as a ghost, and the cup that he was drinking from was still sitting there and everything. So I turn white as a ghost. Dennis turns to me and says, "Man, you've been doing midnights too long. Take a break. Take a couple days off, and just collect yourself." "All right, will do."
Well, hey, at least you got that final. I think, that's different though, because he was actually
he's talking.
He was actually talking with you, interacting.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was just there. It was an actual conversation.
Sweet. Well, I mean, that's probably something that gave him a lot of joy.
Well, he
not talking to you,
it.
Obviously.
No, well, obviously not talking to me. But he did. He loved what he did.
Necessary evil.
He loved being a radio DJ. He loved playing those old songs. That was really the highlight of his week because he's semi-retired. That's the only thing he had to look forward to all week was that.
I mean, it could be that he didn't understand that he had died, so he came in like he would always.
I often wonder why, and that's exactly what I've come up with, is maybe he didn't realize he died. And it was Sunday, doing what he loves, came in, and then, of course, he always talked to me, and I really, to this day, have no true explanation for it. I just know I talked to a dead guy for like 5 minutes.
That's pretty sweet.
That's it, man. That's my story.
Well, yeah, that's all I got to say. That's pretty sweet.
Anyway,
so
moving along.
Okay, moving along. Jake. Jake's the man. So he said, "This isn't my story, but one that my friend told me that occurred to his friend, M. A few years ago, a friend very close to M passed away. 2 weeks after he died, M went out to a party at another friend's house. At about 2 a.m., M decided to leave and drive home. This was out in the country, and there were no other cars on the road except his. M got to a red light, and when it turned green, he stepped on the gas. But he felt a hand pull his foot back off the gas, and he heard a voice say, "No!" Then a big truck came zooming through the intersection, going way over the speed limit. If that hand, or whatever it was, didn't pull his foot back, that truck would have rammed right into the side of him. I don't believe in divine intervention, but I'm not quite sure how to explain this one. So let me be the first to say that I think it's awesome that you have a friend who is a friend with the leader of M6. Bravo.
Bravo.
That's M. That's M.
That's it.
British Secret Intelligence.
Gotcha.
MI6. That's what it was.
Yeah. So anyhow, taking the story for what it is, the M, who we can only assume is the head of British intelligence.
If you're not willing to put his full name, then I can say whatever I want.
That is true.
No matter what it implies.
Well, at least it's a positive story, not a scary one.
That's true.
You know, there's a good outcome here.
Well, do you have an explanation for it? As silence reeks his ugly head?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, the hand reaches the leg, pulls it back, allegedly saves it. M, he or she, doesn't really specify.
It says he.
Does it say he? Sorry.
It says when he turned green, he stepped on the gas.
There it is. He did specify. I was so in awe of the last part of the story about hand grabbing. Now, I have heard about people having angelic interventions at times of crisis. I'm not sure if this is one of those times. I mean, one would hope it is. It has to be. Mr. Skeptic?
I'm not Mr. Skeptic, but I definitely don't believe that it's divine intervention. There's a thing that I was told that it's called the dream walk, but I've asked a couple people that have been in the field longer than me. I'm like, hey, have you ever heard this term? And they're like, no. So I don't think that's exactly what it's called, but I'm going to call it that because that's what I know it as. And that is where your loved ones, when they pass away, they hang around for a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, and they want to make sure that you are okay, that you're gonna go on without them before they move on to the next level. So if his friend died, and as they say, when you're nothing but energy, time has no meaning. You can go forward, you can go back. His friend probably came back and saved him. From joining them, I guess. Sure
could have. Or he could have had a dream. M did, where he saved himself, but really was an astral projection into the future.
What?
Yeah. Haven't you ever heard of that?
No, not at all, in fact.
No,
so,
because there is some...
Well, astral projection, yeah, but not astral projecting yourself into the future so you can come back and save yourself.
Well, yeah, but there's no time. There's a theory out there saying that when you project, it doesn't necessarily mean astral projection, but when you're dreaming, for instance, it's kind of a strange theory and it's a far-fetched theory, but it's still a theory out there nonetheless. That we have the ability mentally to interact with our future in some regards. And sometimes people have reported saving themselves because they've dreamt it before, or they dreamt it and they interacted with their future self. And I'll look up the phenomena for you. It's quite an obscure one. But
I can see that.
It does claim, people have claimed to have done that. Just saying.
I would definitely like to go back and tell myself a few things.
Wouldn't it be great to have a time machine, though?
Probably.
You know, just to go back with the knowledge that you have today.
Yeah, like a sports almanac.
Well, I wouldn't say in your case
Go to
knowledge,
Vegas.
but I would say
just like Back to the Future.
yes. Anyhow, we're getting too deep into this. I think you're right. I think you're probably
Yes.
actually correct. I think it was maybe a loved one. It was a friend. It was somebody that cared about M that probably interjected themselves into that moment. That's far more plausible than my astral projection saving yourself in the future with superpowers crap. So,
thank you. I'm glad that you said that.
Yes.
All right, next story.
Let's go to break. Hold on. Before we get to this one, let's go to break early. We only got 5 minutes before we have to go break. So
Fine.
Let's do this early. So we're going to go to break. We'll come back right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. And right now, hour one, we're going through your stories. This is you guys' time to shine. And boy, do we have a lot of great ones on tap yet to come this hour. We also are having the awesome Bridgewater Triangle stuff coming on next hour. I don't want to spoil it for anybody because it is quite an interesting place that has multi-layers. But if you have ever heard of the Bridgewater Triangle, it is quite the cool thing. It is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird, especially since we watched the documentary, even dug deeper into it. You find the high strangeness that is involved in the Bridgewater Triangle. Okay, moving along. You were just about to call me read the next
Absolutely.
story.
So, as Joel interrupted me during my proudest moment of the show, to go on a break. So, I want to start this. So, hi, Judgmental Joel and Mike. I'm William, longtime listener. So, let me just stop right there. William, thank you for making my day. You are a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh, boy.
That's all I will say.
Oh, wow.
When I was very young, about 7 or 8, possibly younger, I vividly remember looking in the reflection of my parents' lamp in their room. It was a big, round, reflective blue lamp, but you could easily see everybody in the room, and I like looking at it because it made things look weird and stretched at certain angles. But that's when I saw someone else in the room. I remember seeing a lady wearing all black with a black veil over her face. She was just standing in the doorway of my parents' room, her head slightly bowed, but standing straight with great posture. She was holding her hands in front of her like you would when you are praying. My mom and dad were in the room, and I kept asking them who the lady was, because when I turned around, I couldn't see her, only in the reflection, and my parents kept saying, "There's no one there. What are you talking about?" But I couldn't stop looking at her, and I eventually lost interest and went about my night not thinking anything of it. When I got a little older, about 17, my older brothers and sister were talking about how the house was haunted, and I ended up telling them that about the lady I saw, and my sister, being the oldest, was like, "That's creepy as hell." My oldest brother acted like he didn't want to talk about it and left the room. My other brother, James, looked at me in shock and said he had seen the lady before. He told me he saw it at a park when he was with his friends, and she was just staring at them from across the field near the playground. He didn't think anything of it because the closer he got, he realized that she disappeared after looking to his friends and asking if they saw her too. They said, "We don't know what you're talking about," and laughed it off. But he was left with an eerie feeling that he was being followed or watched. So I would first like to say that if I ever become a spirit and I'm haunting somebody and they are trying to describe me, I would take it with the greatest honor ever and be so happy if they said I had great posture.
Well,
that's I don't think I've ever heard a spirit described with, but they had great posture.
He stood up straight. That's all I could say good about him. Was he stood up straight?
I have a lot of weight distributed in front, so I lean a little bit because I just don't have the back muscles yet.
That's okay. You can correct that in the afterlife, evidently. When they say, it wasn't a great.
Well, I'm coming back with abs. Like I'm gonna be ripped.
You're gonna be like Chris Hemsworth ripped, right? That kind of thing going on.
I want to make Chris Hemsworth look like me right now.
Oh, wow! You are truly. Well,
that's how.
But a lot of times when they talk about ghosts, they talk about the ghosts looking like they did in life, right?
Yes.
And another question I've always had, and no one has been able to answer this, including myself. Why are they wearing clothes? I don't quite understand the point. You're dead. Why are you wearing clothes when people see full-body apparitions? Heck, even the apparitions I have seen are all clothed. And I'm assuming that is because that's the way they remember themselves in life, and I'm sure that there is an explanation. Not me, man. I'd be right around the full Monty. Why not?
I I can't remember where I was when I was talking about this, but not only am I going to be ripped, but I'm going to be swinging a bat too. So I'm with you on that one. Thank God this is an adult show.
And he had great posture, considering he had the bat in front of him. And that
ripped,
took
swinging a bat
power.
with great posture. My afterlife.
Your afterlife is going to be a wonderful time for you. And you're going to be lying to everybody, but it'll be a wonderful time for you.
Nobody said being
and I'll be around and I'll say, hey,
honest.
You know, I knew Mike in life. You want to see a picture?
That's not at all what I saw. The face looks kind of the same. He had more hair, though.
He was beautiful and had great posture. Yeah. If that's what you got from seeing that ghost, is boy, did that guy have great posture. I think.
Well, late, but that's okay.
Yeah. But I understand there's more to the story. But he had great posture.
But okay, so I'll can you aside to this story. I right now I'd like to know who saw who first. You know, did the brother James see the lady in the park first, and then William saw it at the house, or was it the other way around?
Yeah,
because if James saw it in the park first and felt like he was being followed or watched, he might have actually been followed home by this lady.
Yeah, he might have been. He very well might have been followed home. Because that's an important detail that wasn't said. Who saw who first? And what area was it in? Because ghosts do have a tendency to follow people home. They just do, especially if they just like you. That's happened to you, I'm sure. I'm sure that's happened to you a time or two. Have you ever had anything follow you home, Mike?
Not really. I have this... Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting about the time some ghost followed me home from an investigation I did down in Missouri and then just sat by and did absolutely nothing for like 6 months. And then a medium friend of mine was the one that was like, you got an attachment. And I'm like, no, I don't. I didn't believe her because nothing had ever happened, period. Mm-hmm. And then, so I shrugged it off. And then I got told by another one, like, you have an attachment. I'm like, no, I don't.
No, I
like,
don't. What are you talking about?
You to die of old age? I'm like, if somebody wants my attention for something, you would think that they would do something to get my attention. And nothing had ever been done. Mm-hmm. But she actually came back with details of where I supposedly picked this up and realized that I had, in fact, had an investigation that she knew nothing about. Where this might have actually happened. And all this spirit was looking for was an apology from me because I had accidentally and unknowingly stepped on a grave of one of her friends, I guess, and didn't apologize for it because I didn't know. I didn't know that I had done this.
Yeah.
And once I realized and was told, well, this is why she's here, I was like, oh, 100%, I apologize. I didn't know. And she was moved on.
Well, that was fairly easy.
Yeah,
move her on. You know, because I've also heard nightmares about people with attachments. Just nightmare tales.
Yeah, but I don't have any though. Sorry.
No.
None.
That's really too bad. It's really too bad.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, if only I would have suffered just a little bit more.
Just a little bit. Just
then
so you have a good story.
Enjoyment of life could be that much better.
Then maybe you can get a TV show.
I can get a TV show anyways.
You can. I know you can. Look at you. You and your Chris Hemsworth body and your full
Not yet.
Hair.
Give it time. All I need is death.
All you need is death? Well,
that's all I
that,
need.
my friend, can be arranged.
That's all that's missing in my workout is death. And that's going to be right there.
That can always be arranged. They're stepping off the curb at the wrong time in front of the wrong bus. You know, you just never know. Okay.
Easiest. Okay, yeah. So, but
we are going to move on here. We rambled too long.
Whatever.
Hey guys, Peter. I have a creepy story for you. So this is back in September 2017. I was deleting pictures from the camera roll My phone at the time was, I've never heard this brand, so bear with me, a Huawei P10, was released March of that year. That's when I ran into a pretty dim picture that was taken in May, not thinking it was weird at all at first. I skipped it and didn't delete it. Even though it was pretty faint and dark, thinking one of my little brothers were playing with my phone and took the picture by mistake. Later that night, I ran into it again. I had the feeling that there was something wrong, because the more I looked into it, the more I realized that there's something wrong there. Who is it, I was thinking, and all I can make out of this is the nightgown that I can't even see it right, which makes no sense. So if you're writers, please, English, first language, thank you. I downloaded a picture with an editing app to lighting the picture, and I saw what I saw was froze my blood in my veins. A woman with long black hair covering her face, arms, and chest, wearing a dirty white nightgown. She's a dirty, dirty girl sitting in my bed.
A white, dirty nightgown?
Yeah.
Does not transfer to her personality. Continue.
I just said she's a dirty, dirty girl. She's wearing a dirty nightgown. She's wearing a dirty nightgown, so she needs to take a bath. Sitting in my bed, or probably on my bed is probably what he meant. I got the chills up to my spine because I had sleep paralysis about her. How do you have sleep paralysis? I couldn't believe it and showed it to my friends, who one of them said, "My mom says it's bad luck to have it. She knows these things." I wonder how she knows these things. Showed it to my mom, who had no clue about it at all. The phone ended up with my dad after a while. I don't know if the picture is still on it or not. I still figure somehow it is strange. So anyhow, you took a picture, and you own this phone, and you're going through your camera roll, and so you use the editing program. You know, first off, whenever you start editing pictures, I tend not to want to edit pictures, but that's just me, because it's no longer really genuine at that point. And so you saw her with a dirty nightgown on, and it froze your blood. No, but why would that make you... obviously, if she's in your bed, that would make anyone scared, right? Right, Mike? If you saw a picture, oh my God, that's my bed, and she's dirty.
Well, it's a picture of the woman from The Ring.
Well, it could very well be, minus the well.
Minus the well.
You know, she's not in the well.
Maybe the house was built on top of the well.
It could be. It could be, but her dirty white... I like the dirty nightgown.
I know.
I like wearing a dirty nightgown. It's a joke, because there is a city near me, and my daughter goes there to this town, and me. We'll go for a walk over there once in a while. It's kind of by a nice lake, and has a nice lake in it. And she'll go, "Oh, we're back in the dirty, dirty town of Virginia, aren't we?" And I'll say, "Yes. That's a dirty, low down town." And she's 6.
Wonder where she got that from. Dad.
I found it just hilarious. Sorry, that's why I had to say it's a dirty, dirty nightgown. As far as the paranormal, yeah, it would, but why would you have sleep paralysis about her?
I think he meant that he had a dream about her that caused him to have sleep paralysis.
That's what I was gathering, but just kind of a strange story altogether. Paranormal? Sure. Sure it is.
Well, the funny thing is, so as I read this, I mean, obviously the description is the woman from The Ring, but
yes, it is.
Obviously this kind of thing is not an every mom thing. Only the friend's mom knows about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does she know about these things? Elaborate.
Well, maybe she's an investigator.
It could be. Or
but
maybe.
The thing that came up with this one for me is I think it is definitely possible for spirits to put photos on digital devices. That actually happened to Dave probably about a year or two ago. We went to an event, I can't remember where, but he took a bunch of photos of the place with his phone. And the next day when he was going through them, all of a sudden, like right in the middle, there was a picture of like a alleyway street corner that he had never been to, had nothing to do with this location, and it was right in the middle of his roll. It was just kind of put in there somehow, and it was crazy. The other thing is, and I wanted to bring this up just because I think it's really, really cool, but Grant Wilson has talked about this a couple times, is that our devices and our technology, usually the older it is, the better it works, can pick up a lot of really creepy things. He likes to tell the story of taking like a blank VCR tape, like just an old from the 80s, 90s or whatever, and putting it under your pillow and leaving it there for like 30 days. He said when you pop it in the VCR, all kinds of strange crap will be on there that will have been absorbed by the energy that's in the environment with you and everything. Oh. I've never tried it, so I don't know. I don't think I'd want to, but yeah. So I definitely think that there could be a spirit in your house that is somehow has put herself onto his phone.
Is that more, in my opinion, that would be more plausible with analog equipment than digital, though. But I mean, I can't say it can't happen because I've actually, like you, heard and seen that kind of evidence where it's just imprinted on the media. Rather, just odd things, pictures, things like that. There's a case out of, it's escaping me right now, the Skull Project. Have you ever heard of the Skull Project?
No.
Okay, the Skull Project was in England, and there was a group of people called the Skull Six, and they would take like film canisters that had never been opened. They would take different things, different cassette tapes, reel to reel back then, and they would have they'd put it in the middle of a table, and they'd have a seance, and then they would develop these pictures, and there would be pictures of ghosts on this never opened before film canister.
Yeah. That's the good stuff.
What they were saying was because of it's an analog medium, that they were able to manipulate the metals that are in that particular film and of course in tape, audio tape. I've never really heard a ton about digital being manipulated in the same way, but I would imagine it's still able to be done.
It's all energy.
Exactly. It's a great story. That
Absolutely.
That is a great story. Good stuff.
All right. So this next one comes from Catherine. About 10 years ago, when I was about 16, I started babysitting for a family that lived in my neighborhood. They had a sweet 7-month-old baby girl that I would just babysit every now and then, and 2 dogs that were also very sweet. Despite them having a nice house and a nice neighborhood, I still got a very weird feeling when I was in their house. Almost like I was being watched or felt a presence there while I was there. Whenever I took care of the baby or their dogs, I would never want to spend longer there than needed. One night while babysitting her, she's now about 2 years old, she asked to go down to their basement to play with Play-Doh. I said yes, and we went downstairs. I got a very weird feeling when we went down there, but I still got out the Play-Doh for her. We were playing for about 2 minutes before she came over to me and said she was scared. I asked why she was scared. She said, "The man is scaring me." I said, "What?" Because I thought I had heard her wrong the first time, and she said very clear, "The man is scaring me." She then asked to go upstairs, and I said yes, and she bolted and ran up the stairs and left me to clean up the Play-Doh. Typical child.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Mike, were you in the
That's
basement?
not part of her story. That's me.
Were you in the basement by chance with that little girl? Just curious.
Me? No.
Yeah, because she said a scary man.
I'm not a scary man. I'm a big man. So anyway, about 6 months after the family asked me to care... about 6 months after, the family asked me to care for the dogs while they were out of town, and I said yes. I ended up burning some sage and asking the spirit to leave the space. After that, I didn't feel the presence as strongly. It was to this day such a weird experiment.
Yeah,
So,
it is a weird experience, definitely. I mean, you got a little girl coming up to you. Man, that person over there is scaring me, that guy. And, of course, typical fashion bolts on you where you have to clean up. But you're right. That is Satan's work right there.
Yes, but it is God's work that there's Play-Doh. Because Play-Doh is amazing.
Yeah. Well, Play-Doh notwithstanding. There is a certain school of thought where small children and are more susceptible to seeing things than we are, adults. And that very well could be the case. She might have seen something in that basement that scared her. Could be a person down there that you're just not picking up on. And then, of course, you kind of were, though, because you were saying you didn't feel very good in there anyway. But she was seeing it physically. You were probably picking up on it emotionally and spiritually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and when people burn sage, from what I understand, that's supposed to calm energy. So that very much would have been why maybe you didn't feel it so strongly after that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also told, and I don't know how true this is, that also burning sage makes it smell like a garbage dump to spirits, and that's why they leave, because they can't stand the smell.
Well, I can barely stand the smell.
That is true.
It
doesn't smell like a garbage
personally
dump, though.
Don't necessarily like the smell of sage. I mean, I've smelled worse things, but yes, it's not the most pleasant thing to have burning in your home.
No, it's not. So I definitely think that it was your request for it to leave and while burning sage that kind of, if anything, made it keep its distance.
Personal empowerment as well. You wanted to get rid of it. You showed that you wanted it gone by burning the sage and probably talking to it while you're doing it. Hey, get out of here.
Hashtag girl power.
It's probably a little bit of both going on there. All right, we only got a few minutes left, so we'll do number 6 here. Hey, this is Ken, Judgmental Joel. Love it. But that's what makes you a great radio host. This was at the beginning of 2010. I was about 25. My grandfather had passed away from his 3rd bout of cancer. I'm sorry to hear that. Cancer's horrible. As my grandma was diagnosed with dementia. Oh, again, a horrible disease. Sorry about that. I had moved in to help take care of her as she and Grandpa practically raised me. Besides the dreams, the smells, and the electronics being messed with, my grandpa had these experiences for about 6 months after. My grandma, rather, had these experiences for about 6 months after my grandfather had passed. Her room was in the back of the house, just past the kitchen and dining room. We, mother and I, would put her to bed, imagine you mean, and go about our evening routines. We would hear her in there talking, having conversations with someone. There was no phone in there, so it wasn't that. In the morning, she would tell us that she saw Papa, and go on and on about it. I can be a night owl once in a while and love myself some midnight snacks. Don't we all? How about you, Mike? You a midnight snacker?
Man of girth.
Yeah, I'd go into the kitchen around 2 a.m. She would have been in bed for about 5 or 6 hours at this point. I would hear her talking to someone, going back and forth. This went on for about 6 months until we moved her out. Walking into the room, in and out, and having a faint smell of his cologne made it all that much eerie. It could have been your grandpa. He probably obviously loved your grandma, and they had a special relationship that you would probably never understand, being married, man and wife, having kids, that whole thing. I could not imagine. No, and I hope I do not have to go through this for many, 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 many more years. I couldn't imagine losing my spouse. That would be truly hard.
Was that Jen laughing in the background?
No, that was me coughing just a little bit and choking up. Choking up. No, that was actually her choking me, trying to hasten the spouse removal.
That I could see.
But no, all kidding aside, your grandma probably really misses your grandpa. And people with dementia, they do they do have memories. They can remember things. It's pretty much a lot of, from what I understand, now I'm not a doctor in any way, but I understand dementia is more of the now kind of problems. Like they can remember back in 1925 and talk to you about it, but they can't remember your name or remember things, recent memories.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And so I want to think it's your grandpa visiting. What do you think, Mike?
I think so too. I mean, I just talked a couple stories ago about the whole dream walk thing and how people hang around to make sure that you're okay.
I think,
and
yeah, exactly. I think you're right. I was supposed to say, I think you're right.
Thank you.
Well, you know, my dad has been gone for a few years, and once in a while, I swear to God, I'll see him out of the corner of my eye, or I'll smell his cologne, or little things that makes me believe that once in a blue moon he'll pop in just to see how things are going. And
yeah, I mean, if you want to believe Chip Coffee, they pop in and out anytime they want.
You know, which is actually really soothing. That's a soothing thought. That's a good thought. That they are there once in a while to check in on their loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why, but I've been thinking about it a lot lately, for the past couple months. And I honestly think that even though, I mean, if you want to believe in the reincarnation, that, the people that we have in our lives now, and we pass on before we get reincarnated, I mean, I know I definitely would, and I would come back to check on the people who meant the most to me until they have passed, or I have to come back to Earth, or come back to this plane, or however you want to phrase it. But I would definitely, a lot of times over the course of the people's lives as they continue on past mine, I would check in on them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But one thing you're going to want to check out is Para-Unity coming this October. It is going to be a great time in Duluth, Minnesota. You're going to want to get your tickets early because they are going so fast right now. Friday only pass $30. Saturday only is $30. 2-day pass, save yourselves $10 and get it for $50. VIP dinners $55, and you can become a vendor for the low price of $225. And I know these hard economic times, once things lift, if you are a retailer, this would be the time to get in on this. Maybe give yourselves your own economic boost, but these are some of the people that you'll be able to see at Para-Unity this year. And I know I'm taking Mike's thunder here, but I'm going to continue to do that. Why not? It's a good time. Grant Wilson, Michelle Belanger, The Mystery Machine, Steve Gonzalez, Natalie Jones, Dustin Perry, Chuck Zukowski, Heather Taddy, Mike Couch, Lost Limbs Foundation. That guy is worth the price of admission right there. I mean, he's doing some good work. You got to stop by and talk with him. If anything else, you got to stop talk with him. John Tenney, Chad Lindbergh, Chris Fleming, Chip Coffey, Lauren Coleman, Amy and Adam Bruni are going to be there. Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, sorry. Greg, I always think they're married. For some reason, in my mind, even when we've interviewed them in the past, I want to put them together as a couple. And I know they're not. They couldn't be further from. But for some reason, in my mind, I want to...
You know what's funny about that? A while ago on Twitter, I followed them both. Somebody had asked Amy Bruni about whether they were together, just like you did. And she's like, I don't know what it is. She's like, I always get asked that question. He's like, but Adam doesn't. And Adam chimed in. And he's like, literally never.
Like, literally never.
He's like, literally never. So, he has never been asked if those two are together, but she gets asked that all the time.
Well, that's Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, and they're from Kindred Spirits. It's a great show, too. And Greg and Dana Newkirk, they're all going to be there. That's coming up in October. You want to check it out. mnparacon.com is the website. Get your tickets. Check out all the dates. Get your hotel rooms, too. That's something you got to think of, too, in Duluth. It does fill up really quick in that city. A lot of things are going on that particular weekend. Not only is this Paracon going on, but they got a lot of just normal touristy stuff in that town, because you might go to Duluth, but you're going to love it there. There's so much to do.
I would like to add that I have 2 separate hotels with blocks of rooms at discounted rates that I'm saving for people who come from outside, like the 3-state. If you have to drive through a state in order to get to Duluth, I will send you a discounted room once I see that you bought your tickets.
Exactly. Again, mnparacon.com is the website. Buy our tickets. Check out the sponsors, all that kind of good stuff. We got to run a break. We'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions, brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on 2 things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. We just got done reading your emails. It's been a lot of fun, so keep those things coming. We love to hear from you. You guys are what drives this show, and that first hour we love to dedicate to you guys each and every week. And tonight we are having a great show. 2 great guests with us, Christopher Balzano, but I got to tell you, this filmmaker just caught my attention with his film out there called The Bridgewater Triangle. And that, of course, you saw it, right, Mike?
I did. Absolutely, I did.
Great.
I actually saw it twice.
Aaron Cadieux is with us tonight, and he is the real deal. Really, really enjoyed the film, Aaron. It really grabbed me.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I've always had a fascination with the Bridgewater Triangle. I think it really started, I have to blame a guy here named Chris Balzano in his book called Dark Woods. That's what got me. Book. Yeah, I didn't even know about the Bridgewater Triangle. I happened to meet Chris through some radio channels. We had him on as a guest because this is way back when. And I read the book and I'm like, what the hell is this Bridgewater Triangle and why do I care about it? And I quickly cared about it because of his book. And then your movie only compounded that because it has a lot of great eyewitness testimony and a lot of lore behind it. Now, I'm going to begin. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Aaron, and what got you, a filmmaker of your caliber, interested in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Well, I mean, I live in southeastern Massachusetts. I'm born and raised here. I live in Dartmouth, which is actually technically just south of the Bridgewater Triangle. And I am a documentary filmmaker by trade now, and growing up in this area, when I got to my college years, I was looking for a topic for a documentary, and I'm kind of Halloween's my favorite holiday, so I'm kind of into the spooky, even though I'm pretty much a major skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I was looking for a topic for a documentary in college, and when I was researching allegedly haunted locations in Massachusetts, I came across a long article by Christopher Pittman about the Bridgewater Triangle, and I actually had done a short 30-minute documentary on the Bridgewater Triangle back in college. This was back in 2002, 2003. And I couldn't sell it because it was a student film. I'd used copyrighted music and image stuff. I didn't know what I was doing back then. But there were people that would ask for copies of it, and I never could sell, but I would just give out copies on DVD. It was called Inside the Bridgewater Triangle. And somebody took it and uploaded it to Google Video, which used to exist before the days of YouTube. And when it got up on Google Video, this 30-minute student film got 75,000 views within a very short time period. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of people that are really into the paranormal, and particularly the Bridgewater Triangle. So fast forward to years later, almost 10 years later, in 2013, I was looking for a topic to do a real, feature-length documentary that we could possibly sell. And I had remembered how much people were interested in the Bridgewater Triangle, so I was like, here's a topic that has interest from around the world, and it's located in my backyard. Let's do a real 90-minute documentary on the Bridgewater Triangle, because I knew there would be an interest in it, and it kind of just took off from there.
Now, do you call yourself, Aaron, a skeptic, or do you fall in the believer category when it comes to the triangle?
Major skeptic. I've said this a million times, but I walked into this project probably a 99% skeptic, and walked away from the project probably still a 96% skeptic. So there were some things that happened along the way that even made me
wearing you down, Aaron. We're wearing you down.
Yeah. But yeah, regardless of how I feel about the paranormal, the Bridgewater Triangle in and of itself is a fascinating topic, and it was a hell of a lot of fun making the film.
It really looks like it was too, because you're in the triangle talking to eyewitnesses, and you also featured pretty prominently Chris Balzano in the movie. And how did you and Chris meet?
Oh, God. Through him on Spooky South Coast, I think, years ago.
I think I could probably I think Aaron's selling himself short. When you say, Joel, that you were influenced by Dark Woods, when I first started that project, when my boss said, hey, I heard there's some weird stuff going on in Freetown. Why don't you take a little time off of doing work right now and do some research on that? I found Alan Alves. And when I found Alan Alves, he gave me a copy of Inside the Bridgewater Triangle. Aaron is completely selling himself short. Yes, 75,000 is a lot of hits. But almost instantly when that movie came out, which is around the time I started doing my heavy research into the Bridgewater Triangle, when I started working on Dark Woods, everybody was talking about it. It had already started to move the needle of what people were thinking about when it comes to the weirdness that's going on in that area. It was a student film, but it definitely captured and it triggered as well, because now all of a sudden, I joke for years, and Aaron can back me up because he's been on the end of this somewhat. Every Hollywood producer in the world, it seems, is trying to capitalize on the Bridgewater Triangle, trying to make some kind of television show or an episode of a television show or another documentary. The only person that's cracked the code is the insider. It's Aaron. He's the only one who's done it. And probably because he's knee deep in it. He understands it, and he now has relationships with all these people. When I saw that first film, Inside the Bridgewater Triangle, it changed the way I viewed the area. People were already starting to talk about it. And then when I started working on Dark Woods, through Tim and through some other people, through Alan too, I think, I contacted him because he had already started talking about the weirdness and the crime aspects of Freetown that I explore in Dark Woods. And it's funny because it feeds and then it goes back. So then my research helped him with the newer documentary. And then, of course, now people are experiencing that documentary and coming to me about stuff in the Bridgewater Triangle. So it really has been this symbiotic and secular kind of movement within the paranormal in that area. And, and now nationally and somewhat internationally, and a lot of it has to do with this little student film that people were craving, and yet it completely captured the spirit and the essence of that area.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, too, just to jump on that with Chris, Chris was actually the first shoot of the documentary that people now know, the 90-minute documentary, when he came up from Florida and was giving a tour of the Freetown State Forest and was gracious enough to allow me to tag along on that. And then Chris accidentally had locked his keys in his car in the middle of the state forest and was supposed to go do a book signing, but ended up having to call the head off, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, so it took like 2 hours for AAA to come unlock his car for him. So we jumped on the opportunity, and we ran that impromptu interview that's shot out in the middle of the state forest, and that's when the incident with the lights shutting off happened with Chris's interview. But Chris's tour of the Freetown State Forest was the first thing that was shot for that documentary, and I believe that tour was back in like 2008.
That would have been 2008, because it was right after I'd moved here to Florida.
Wow. So you took that opportunity, kind of, it was meant to be, guys. That interview was meant to be.
I always say signs. And I think
it was a happy accident.
Exactly.
So for people who don't know the incident that he's talking about, because I think I'm the one who helped scrape away a little bit of that skepticism of him. We were shooting a specific section of it. So one of the reasons why people think the Bridgewater Triangle is so odd and so off and so many things happen there is because of the King's Phillips War, specifically what happened at the end of it, which was the wampum belt, which was this cherished relic of the Wampanoag who used it to tell the oral history of their people. It was taken from them at the surrender at the end of King Philip's War, and a lot of people feel that if that belt, which is now lost to history, if that belt was ever found and returned to the tribe, the Bridgewater Triangle would cease to exist, that it would go back to being, normal. I don't agree with that, but that's what we're talking about. And as we're talking about it, all of the lights go out during the interview. It was right as I was talking about that part about the spirits being upset about it. And they loaded everything back up. I'm assuming, I always say, at least when I tell the story, replacement batteries were fully charged. They get back up. They asked me, they asked me to continue that part of the interview. Matt Moniz mentions that the lights shut off just when I was talking about the curse. And I sarcastically look at the camera and I apologize to the Wampanoag, saying, I did not mean to insult you. And then, boom, all the lights go out again from these fully charged, the fully charged setup Aaron had there. And everyone there who was both, skeptic and paranormal researcher, we all were completely freaked out because we knew we had just experienced something that was unexplained.
Up to this point in my life, that is the only thing that has ever happened to me that I would even consider remotely in the realm of being an unexplained occurrence or a paranormal experience. And it happened completely organically with the cameras rolling. To this day, it's been, 7 years since the film was released. People still ask me if that was staged and if that we faked that. And I said I would never fake anything in any documentary that I've ever done, and that happened completely organically, and as it happens in the film. The only thing I did was cut out some of the time it took to get the lights back up and running again. I just snipped out that portion just because people don't want to sit there for 5 minutes watching nothing. So I just cut out the portion in between, but everything else is exactly how it happens.
Man,
if we had faked it, I would have worn nicer clothes.
Well, how could you? You were stuck out in the forest.
Exactly.
You couldn't even get in your car.
If I had known that, I would be I don't even think we can really say, put on celluloid anymore. But if I knew that, I was going to be part of this amazing documentary that eventually came out, I would have dressed the part a little bit more. But, at that time, I think I had been spending 10 hours either in front of an audience or running tours. And so I was pretty scary looking. So I'm probably even more scary than the Bridgewater Triangle at that point.
So Chris, I just have to say really quick, going back a couple minutes ago, I don't know of any boss ever that would tell me, you know what, I don't want you to work right here, right now. I want you to go do research on this paranormal thing.
God bless.
You're not needed.
No, he lived. It's funny. I owe so much to that boss for just that one little moment in time. And it's not like that was an unusual thing. All the time he wanted to talk to me about ghosts, and he wanted to talk to me about the research I was doing. I was working as a librarian at that time. And it was that one little snap moment, like right place, right time. He asked me about that. It was crazy. It was right before Charlie here in Florida. And I wasn't living here, but we came down here to support my mother-in-law at the time, who had lost her home and everything like that. And I had a lot of spare time on my hands, and I started writing what is now kind of the first draft of Dark Woods, at least the first part of it, just about the weirdness of it before all the crime, and I knew about that stuff. And I was like, I had all this time, and I'm going to try to email this guy, Alan Alves. Mm-hmm. And boom, that was the trigger for everything. And it's crazy. It boils down to that one little moment when my boss was like, hey, I want to know a little bit more about this. Hey, find out for me and report back to me. So yeah, it was pretty great. Only time I've ever had a boss who changed my life that much.
Well, that's an awesome thing, because without that we wouldn't have had Dark Woods, and that was what got me on the path of the Bridgewater Triangle. And the Bridgewater Triangle has so many different things going on, and it's got Bigfoot sightings, Thunderbird sightings, animal mutilations, got aliens, you got ghosts. I mean,
puck wedgies,
just so much going in this. I mean, when you guys are growing up in the area, obviously everyone knew about it, right? I mean, everyone knew this is a haunted woods. Was it kind of like the East Coast little best kept paranormal secret?
Well, for how I ended up falling into this, I didn't know there was this thing called the Bridgewater Triangle growing up, but I did live 6 miles down the road from the entrance to the Freetown State Forest. Now, everybody knew that the Freetown State Forest was this strange place where all this weird stuff happened, it's alleged cult activity and all that kind of stuff. So I knew about the Freetown State Forest, but it wasn't until I was researching for the student documentary that I found out that the Freetown State Forest fell into the overall concept of the Bridgewater Triangle. That's when I found out about the Bridgewater Triangle. But I had known about the Freetown State Forest for years as a kid.
No, Freetown,
especially living right down the street.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't that where Lizzie Borden lived as well? Freetown, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's Fall River.
Fall River, that's what it was.
Well, I make this argument in the book, and I've been making it for years, that the Bridgewater Triangle is not the three specific points and the stuff that's inside it, that it grows. So, for example, if you stop at Freetown, well, technically Fall River used to be part of Freetown, right? So for me, Lizzie Borden is 100% inside the Bridgewater Triangle. Mm-hmm. So, and it's funny, Aaron
actually has... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Aaron was knee-deep in this. I was the exact opposite. I was born and raised in Boston and then moved to New Hampshire. So when I started, I was looking to go to places that I could get to by train, that I could get to by the bus, like following up on stories like that, driving a little bit. I had no idea that I would be driving out at least an hour and a half to this stuff. But it's one of those things where, in 1994, the book, The New England Ghost Files came out. And At that point, I was doing kind of what I do now, less investigating, more legend tripping. And we decided to legend trip a whole bunch of stories from that book, which all took place in Rehoboth, which is another one of the apexes. And so it was crazy. Little do we know the author was from Rehoboth. That's why. I would put up an article about something I had experienced, in another part of Massachusetts, closer to Boston, and it would get no drag whatsoever. It would get nothing. And then all of a sudden I posted about the redheaded hitchhiker, and all of a sudden all these people were finding my website and telling me their redheaded hitchhiker stories and then their stories of the area surrounding that. And so then I had to go out and check those out. And I had no idea. Aaron had mentioned Chris Pittman before. I used to work with Chris Pittman at a sub shop, and neither of us knew that the other one was into this stuff. So it's crazy now because in retrospect, obviously the first wave of the Bridgewater Triangle, hysteria comes from Lauren Coleman. Yeah. And the second one really comes from Chris Pittman, and if you ask people that aren't me, they say the two Chris's, from me and from Chris Pittman. And here we are working at a sub shop making, Italian sandwiches and chicken parms, not knowing that we're both doing the same exact research. He's doing more of the cryptids and the UFOs. And so it was more weird for me because I just kept being drawn out to that place, having no idea of anything called the Bridgewater Triangle until I, like Aaron, found some of Chris's stuff online. And I contacted him because I knew him. We hadn't talked in about 2 years. And all of a sudden he's like, well, it's part of the triangle. And boom, there you go. So I think both of us kind of stumbled into it like that.
That is a strange synchronicity right there. I know you hate that word, Mike. I know you do.
That word so much.
But sometimes you just can't avoid it. You guys are both doing the same research at the same shop, really not talking to each other about it. And you find out about this Bridgewater Triangle, and there's just so much going on. Now, you mentioned the war. That was part of it. King Philip's War is what you think is the whole reason for the haunting, or it's got to go beyond that, right? I mean, it can't be that easy.
If you ask me, it goes beyond that. If you ask me, the King Philip's War, and I know Aaron would hate this because he would see no connection in these, right? But for me, the King Philip's War itself is a symptom of the Bridgewater Triangle.
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah, I really feel that because, they already thought places like Freetown, they were happy to get rid of Freetown. And like the Hockomock Swamp, which is like almost like the physical center of the Bridgewater Triangle, they didn't want those places necessarily, or they had no problem kind of giving them up. Or they already saw them as weird somehow. So there already was weird things going on. And then second, especially being down here in Florida, it's crazy because the history of native relations with settlers or with Europeans coming over is completely different in Florida than it is from New England. In New England, it's here we're going to build a little thing, we're going to try to get along, and along the way we're going to screw you a little bit here, screw you a little bit there until eventually tensions build and we fight. As opposed to here in Florida, which is, no, we're pretty much coming to kill you. And so...
At least they're honest.
Right.
There was no
viciousness and the war crimes that took place during the King Philip's War were not necessarily in the personality of the British. They weren't necessarily in the personality of that type of settler, and yet hysteria broke out, and here you have this crazy stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And so I really see that more as a symptom of it rather than a reason for it.
Well, Aaron, you know, being a healthy skeptic, and I can respect that because I most of the time am as well. What do you gather? Do you think it's just high strangeness, or what do you think?
Well, yeah. So here's my thing. The whole concept has been around since the late 70s, early 80s, with Lauren Coleman basically coming up with the parameters. The cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman coming up with the guy, rough borders and the parameters, and whether it's a triangle or not is up for debate. And he'll tell you he kind of just used that term because the Bermuda Triangle was a hot topic at the time. Mm-hmm. So he comes up with this concept, and it becomes mildly popular at the time. And so people that live in this area now know that they are living in an area which has been defined by somebody else as being a place of high strangeness or unexplained occurrences. So my issue always comes with the sophistication of the human brain. If you're walking around in a place which you have been told is haunted or has high strangeness or something like that, and you hear a crackle in the woods, whereas if you weren't in a place that's high strangeness, you're probably, oh, that's a squirrel or a deer. But then if you know you're living in some place with high strangeness, then your imagination can run away with you, and then you may attribute things that aren't necessarily paranormal or unexplained to being as such.
It's the haunted house effect. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. The thing and because I'm such a wet blanket skeptic, the thing that drives me nuts about all these shows about the unexplained or the paranormal is they go into do these, ghost hunts, and the Bridgewater Triangle is not that type of a documentary. There's not really like a lot of active boots on the ground ghost hunting going on in that film. It's more of a historical piece. But my problem with that is that they always say, oh, there's a heavy feeling in the room, or, just feels strange. Yeah, because you're walking into someplace that you already think is haunted. So you can't, it's the best stories that come out of the Bridgewater Triangle are the ones from people that didn't know they were living in an area or there was an area of alleged high strangeness. For example, Bill Russo is the elderly man who tells a story of walking his dog near the swamps in Raynham and allegedly comes across this creature which some people have attributed to being a puckwudgie. I don't know if you remember that scene from the film.
I do. I do.
Otherwise famously known as the E-Want-You section.
Yeah. His story is so great because he had no idea that the Bridgewater Triangle was a thing when he had that encounter. It's just a strange encounter that he wrote about, and we were lucky enough to be the first ones to ever interview him about that encounter. But he had no idea that he was living in the Bridgewater Triangle. So it's those kind of stories that are interesting. Or the two news reporters that saw the huge home plate-shaped UFO flying over Route 24. Those are the stories that I find the most interesting from the people that don't necessarily know they're living in the Bridgewater Triangle. But to go back to your question about what is it about this place, it's really the chicken or the egg. I like to try to be open-minded, but for me, a lot of it stems from people already thinking that they're living in a place that is a level of high strangeness. So are they attributing things to that aren't necessarily strange? That's the big question that I have.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Right, beautiful. Because, and I have to put aside the cryptid stuff, and I have to put aside the UFO, because I'm really, especially when I was in the Bridgewater Triangle and working with that, was more of the ghost angle. And of course, obviously, the puckwudgies could come into that as well, but primarily ghosts. And the hauntings and the types of ghosts that are in the Bridgewater Triangle are different from everywhere else around it. And I'll give you a great example. I believe it's in Ashland. It's Stone's Tavern. It's a famously haunted place, which is outside the Bridgewater Triangle. And I would even say, even if you say the Bridgewater Triangle kind of ebbs and flows what it is, I would still consider it outside of it. Mm-hmm. Great haunted place, always on the list of most haunted places in Massachusetts and New England. And the story that most people feel is the backstory of this haunting is a girl was hit by a train. And they've actually been able to find the bloody clothes and things like that. She was hit by a train. She was brought into the tavern, and she died there. And now her ghost haunts it. Now, that's a really straightforward ghost story. It's a really intense, and people who are there always have weird experiences to talk about, but it has a backstory. It has a logical point A, point B, a cause and effect. What happens in the Bridgewater Triangle oftentimes, most times, which is almost how you define a Bridgewater Triangle haunting, is that there is no backstory, or the weirdness leads to other weirdness. Mm-hmm. So I understand the idea of going someplace already with your mind thinking weird stuff is going on. But if you take something like Lizzie Borden, the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast, people take that as, okay, so it's Lizzie's ghost that might be there, or it's Andrew's ghost who might be there because of the murders, and so it makes sense. And yet, if you ask anyone who has spent any amount of time in the Lizzie Borden house, most people feel there's something darker there. And then you find out on the same property a murder happened before that. So now it comes out, and now the theory is, well, was Lizzie possessed? Was there something that was kind of overshadowing everything that made her do what she did, if she indeed did it? And then you start to look, okay, well, then why did that first murder happen? Well, the mom seemed to go crazy for absolutely no reason. Well, why did she go crazy? And you dig and you dig and you dig. And what you find is that there really is no straightforward point A, point B. It's cause and effect leading back to the cause, which then leads to a different effect, which leads back to the cause. And so it's not straightforward. And that's kind of what makes the majority of the hauntings, at least in the Bridgewater Triangle, unique. And so you feel that it's a Bridgewater Triangle haunting.
I get where you're coming from, but all great stories need the filler, like the girl getting hit by the train, to work, right?
You gotta have an anchor for your legend.
Exactly. So,
no, I'm with you, and trust me, that's what I do now. I track down ghostly legends. I don't investigate. I track down ghostly legends and talk about what they mean to the community that tells them. And what I'm saying is, so many hauntings of the Bridgewater Triangle are just these either one-offs or, one of the classic cases I cover in Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle, which I have gotten 3 or 4 since then, of people who their personality is completely different inside the triangle. They move to the triangle, and almost instantly they start to act completely different towards each other. They start having these weird thoughts in their head. They start to, and I know Aaron hates this, right? Because this is the feeling stuff. This is the stuff you can't prove. And paranormal stuff starts happening in the house too. And as the paranormal stuff escalates, their relationship deteriorates and they leave, right? They get out of the Bridgewater Triangle, and then all of a sudden they come back together, and it's almost as if nothing has happened. So that kind of weird energy impacting the paranormal, which then impacts people's lives, happens often in the Bridgewater Triangle.
But would that not be, like residual energy that they're just kind of picking up? I mean, because a lot of bad things have happened in the triangle. I mean, are they not just kind of absorbing all of this negative energy that is probably still in that area, and it's not anything that's really has a consciousness to it?
That's the concept, that's the question that begins Dark Woods is, are people, are cults, are weird happenings, are serial killers, are weird mental health disorders, are they drawn to the triangle and then feed it, right? And then the second part of that question was, can the same energy or the same thing that's going on with all of this ghost stuff, with all this UFO stuff and all this paranormal and supernatural stuff, can it also have an impact on the sociology of people? And what you find is in the Bridgewater Triangle, at that time at least, there was a higher rate of divorce. There was a higher rate of teen suicide. There was a higher rate of fatal accidents along 24, which is kind of like the backbone of the Bridgewater Triangle. And it was, well, what is up with that? Once again, chicken or the egg? Is it feeding something? Are people drawn to it?
Yeah.
And what you find is that most of these stories, and this is the other part of what makes a Bridgewater Triangle story, is that there's no conclusion, right? So you keep peeling back the layers of the onion, and you find that I'm here in Florida. I've been here almost 12 years. People are still following up on the cases and the stories that I talked about and finding out different causes or different things that are linked to it. Every single, I shouldn't say every single, I'm doing hyperbole tonight, but so many of the things that happen in the Bridgewater Triangle are a rabbit hole, right? And you think that you've got something, and then all of a sudden you start to dig, and it starts to lead you off here, lead you off there. In the Dark Woods, I talk about the highway killings, for example. And I was talking about them in the context of cult crime, because at that time I was firmly of the belief that, this was cults. I was working with Alan Alves, who was a detective who specialized in that. He was telling me, about this cult, that cult. I leave, and all of a sudden Aaron takes the ball, and Aaron's working on a major documentary right now, uncovering and really looking into what's going on with these highway killings, which have never been solved. And that's happening in the Bridgewater Triangle.
How much? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead, guys.
I was going to say, but how much of these stories, these reports, go back to being influenced by the fact that we're in a haunted woods, Kyle, Aaron's point. You're in there and you already believe it's haunted.
Well, if you were asking me as an investigator or as a collector of stories in 2020, that question, I could say, well, yeah, people were really influenced by it, and I've gotten that. I know that Aaron's website, which is open to people telling their stories, has gotten tons of new stuff. When I was there, I wasn't getting, stuff that was influenced. I was getting stuff that was happening, but more importantly, I was getting stuff that had happened 10, 15 years ago, before there were documentaries and T-shirts.
Before it was cool to be the Bridgewater Triangle. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was Triangle before it was cool, But these stories were old. These stories were things that had happened when they were young, or they had happened years ago, or at least they were happening in 2003. Not when people had already kind of established what is a classic Bridgewater Triangle story.
So if you're planning a trip to go to the Bridgewater Triangle, let's just say someone's listening, they're like trying to figure something out to do after this whole pandemic's over to get out of the house. I know we're going to go to the Bridgewater Triangle. Where would you tell them to go? Where would be the hot spots in the triangle that you both found strange for one reason or another to begin with?
Aaron's house. Go see Aaron.
Yeah, stop at Aaron's house, and he'll gladly take you down there.
I mean, obviously, the two primary locations when people talk about the triangle are the Hockomock Swamp and the Freetown State Forest, which are both relatively easily accessible. The Freetown State Forest is state property. You can go through the main entrance, park your car, and walk down any series of a billion dirt roads back there with acres and acres of secluded woodland. It's actually quite pleasant. My family walked through there once in a while. We just took the dog for a walk in there recently just for something to do. So it doesn't necessarily scare me all that much. But in the Hockomock Swamp, that's a lot of that's state preservation land managed by the Fish and Game organization, and you can walk down. There's a really good path that starts in Raynham that kind of cuts up the heart of the swamp, so you can walk from one end of it to the other, and that's quite interesting too. It's just I try to do it in the middle of the day when the mosquitoes aren't quite so ravenous, or go in the fall or the spring when you can try to avoid the heart of the mosquito season.
Sure. Well,
the 2 weeks out of the year, you got places like the Hockomock.
Well,
you can do all the rocks. You can do Dighton Rock. You can do Anawan Rock. There's Profile Rock, which unfortunately actually collapsed to the ground back in June of 2019. We lost Profile Rock. It just basically, finally, just the wear and tear of Mother Nature is kind of similar to the Old Man on the Mountain up in New Hampshire, just finally toppled to the ground. So unfortunately, Profile Rock is no more. But, the other place, like Anawan Rock, Dighton Rock, those are
Solitude
both
Stone.
Interesting in their connection to the... Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Solitude Stone is still there, I'm assuming. I don't think that's gone.
Yeah. Yep, all those, you can make a day out of it, or you can make a couple days out of it, and they're all relatively easy to find, and you can give yourself the Bridgewater Triangle tour.
Mm-hmm. So, Chris, paranormally speaking, if you're to plan a legend tripping trip, and go trip on some legends, where would you begin?
Obviously Freetown is close to my heart, and it's my favorite place to go in the Triangle because something weird always happens or is connected to it. And the Assonet Ledge, for me, is really kind of the pinnacle. I mean, it's the highest point, but it's also the pinnacle of what's going on paranormally. You have, in addition to, reports of at least a dozen people having committed suicide there after being overwhelmed with thoughts that they didn't have when they arrived. You also have the story of a ghostly woman who's there who jumped because of a broken relationship, which obviously is prime for what I'm doing. With my connection to ghostly love legends, and you have potentially Pukwudgie sightings there. And if none of that works out, you can still jump into the water and prove your manhood, or get involved in any of the parties that happen at that ledge, pretty much nightly. So that's the first place I'd go. In the second place, and Aaron touched upon it with Anawan Rock, would be Rehoboth, because you can visit 5 or 6 places in Rehoboth that are historically haunted. And so you can really get into the history of places like the Horvine School or the Shade Factory Pond or Anawan Rock. You can spend days just doing research about the history of the location before you get into the paranormal history of the location, before you actually go out there and experience something, because those are still three very active places, according to people who are still out there.
Even as a skeptic, Rehoboth, for whatever reason, of all the towns that are technically in the Bridgewater Triangle, Rehoboth seems to have this disproportionate amount of ghost stories and ghost legends attached to it for whatever reason. I mean, it's one of the oldest settlements in the United States, and maybe that has something to do with it. But it's a lot of fun, walking around Rehoboth and seeing all the old cemeteries and going to Anawan Rock. So, yeah, I agree with Chris. Rehoboth is a great place to go. And
like I said, I think a lot of that has to do with Charles Robinson having lived there and written a lot of those stories from there, both for his 2 books, but then also a somewhat weekly article he used to do in the Rehoboth paper. But it does have that perfect mix of history, and yet people are still experiencing things there. And then there's also this weird twist of how can this small town have so many cemeteries? That's what we were amazed by when we first looked at it, before the days of TripAdvisor. Even when we were going out there, we just had a map, and it was those old roadside maps. Like I said, I worked at a library, so we just took it like off the shelf to borrow, and we're looking at it, and there was just all these little shades of cemeteries. And I'm like, well, how can this small town that I've never heard of have so many cemeteries and have so much history in so many of those cemeteries?
Begs that question. Cursed, maybe. Cursed.
Well, I mean, my first article about that area was called, the Cursed County. So, actually, that was technically about Bristol County, not Rehoboth. But still, I mean, I'm firmly of the belief that there's something tainted about that land.
Bristol County, and just coming at it from, the latest project I'm working on is true crime and doesn't have anything to do with the paranormal. So just coming at it from that angle, Bristol County, Massachusetts has had, I mean, you're talking about a county that has a fairly decent-sized population. You got City of New Bedford, 100,000 people, Fall River, 100,000 people, Taunton, a little under 100,000 people. So there's a good amount of people there, but it's not a major metropolis like New York or L.A. Bristol County, Massachusetts has had some of the most high-profile criminal cases at an absolute disproportionate level to the rest of the country. There has been, I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, well, in the documentary, we talk about the Lizzie Borden case briefly, of course. Mm-hmm. Then in the late 70s, there was the satanic ritual cult slayings with that group of pimps and prostitutes from Fall River that were allegedly conducting rituals in the Freetown State Forest. 3 women were killed. That was a very high-profile case. And then in 1983, down the road in New Bedford, you had the Big Dan's rape case, which actually was the inspiration for the Jodie Foster movie, The Accused. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before. She actually won Best Actress for that film. And then 5 years after that was a serial murder case in the city of New Bedford where 11 women were murdered as part of a serial killing spree that has never been solved. And then you also had there was an incident where it was the Puzzles bar years later. This was in the 2000s. There was a gay bar called Puzzles that was somebody went into the bar with a hatchet and attacked a bunch of people and went on the run, and it actually killed the cop while he was on the run. That made national news. There was a shootout at a strip club in New Bedford that made national news. There was there's just been a series of all of the texting suicide case happened in Fairhaven, which is also part of Bristol County. The Aaron Hernandez case happened in Bristol County. There's just been a ton of these really high-profile criminal cases in Bristol County, Massachusetts.
Aaron, you are doing nothing for the the tourism of Massachusetts right now.
Come to Bristol County and get killed.
And along with what Aaron's saying, and I think this feeds into, he doesn't want to admit that this feeds into it, but it does feed into the documentary that he's working on now. I'm doing the same kind of research right now in Central Florida, so not to piss off Mickey Mouse, but in there's a forest here called the Ocala Forest, and all of these towns around it are like Fall River, and they're like New Bedford. Fall River, New Bedford should be more booming, right? And they go through these booms, and then they have these crashes. It's almost as if the town can't get out of its own way. And Aaron gave up some really good examples of these things that ruin the reputation of it. But then there's also the business side of things. Businesses go under that don't necessarily go under, or industries, I should say, even go under in those towns the way it doesn't happen. You take a place like Merrimack, New Hampshire. Merrimack was able to, when the Merrimack River was its primary business, it was able to change. It was able to adapt. It's still a fairly, for what it is, prosperous town. And yet we have these places like Fall River and New Bedford specifically that should be they should be more than what they are. And every time it's almost like they get too big for their britches and something weird knocks them back down into their place.
Again.
Do you think that that entire section of Massachusetts is just bad? Like the energy in the land itself, way back before even the King Philip War, just the whole land is tainted where people just can't get positive, I guess you could say.
Well, if you're asking me, the answer is yes. But I'll let Aaron.
And I think Tim Weisberg would agree with Chris on that. He kind of indicates that he thinks that there was something that even predates King Philip's War, that goes back thousands of years, that is basically a stain on the land that, is the source of all these bizarre occurrences and basically sinister occurrences as well.
Yeah, it's a really popular word right now, and it's kind of the catch-all for when we dig into the paranormal and we can't figure out the root cause. We use words like veil and vortex. Mm-hmm. And there's no better explanation that I have for the Bridgewater Triangle than some kind of vortex, some kind of veil that is thinner there than it is other places.
So one of the things that you had in I don't remember who said it, which one of the people that you were talking about, but he said that in the Hockomock Swamp, which I absolutely love that name, he said that there are graves that are like 8,000 plus years old.
Oh, that was Joe Murray in the beginning of the film when we're talking about the Hockomock Swamp. Yeah, I believe they found burial grounds there that date back that far. I mean, you're talking about the indigenous people that lived here for thousands of years before the white man ever came. So it's totally. I mean, there's another story of a place called Grassy Island, which was right near Dighton Rock. It's actually within eyeshot of the Dighton Rock Museum. And Grassy Island was the site of an archaeological dig that we talk about in the documentary, where a professor from Brown University did an archaeological dig there. And one of the stories is that these ancient Native American tombs, which date back thousands of years, when they opened up the tomb, the red ochre that the natives used in the embalming process mysteriously bubbled and dissolved away. Now, obviously, there's no proof that this happened. It's just the story itself, and allegedly the photographs of the excavation failed to develop at that time. But yeah, there are routine reports of burial grounds dating back tens of thousands of years.
Which wouldn't be that uncommon, because the natives, like you said, the indigenous people were here long before we ever thought about showing up. So it wouldn't be that strange of an occurrence, because they're probably here in the Midwest as well, different places. So I got to ask, because everyone's hitting me up on social media, what the heck's a puck wedgie and why does it matter?
Puck wedgies are awesome.
That's Chris's department. That's Chris's department.
Puck wedgies.
See, this is why I'm so glad Chris is here, because he's more of the paranormal guy. I'm more of the skeptical wet blanket. So,
and let me just say how I'm very glad that we haven't. You didn't ask that question until 10 minutes before we're off air, so we had time to talk about other things. Because whenever you use the P word,
it's a mire of
it tends to take over the show. So, a puckwudgie is a troll. For all intents and purposes, it's a gremlin. It's some kind of elemental fairy that physically looks. Our best, like a European kind of description for it would be a troll, a small troll, 3 feet tall. I've been tracking these things for almost 20 years now, which is crazy when I think of that number. But it is this little paranormal trickster, which is kind of undefinable. Is it a cryptid? Is it an elemental? Is it something other than that? They control the spirits of the people who they have killed through these ghost lights known as Tai Pai Wonkas. And people are still reporting this thing in New England, in the Bridgewater Triangle specifically. And you know, as I've done more research, I've discovered that Pukwudgie is a Native American word used by multiple tribes across the country, actually, to describe almost the way we would use the word monster. You know, then monster, and then all of a sudden you have different variations. So, like the Iwanchu creature that's in the documentary, I feel is a Pukwudgie in that it falls under this huge umbrella. But these little trickster spirits, you know, I didn't even have a word for it. People were reporting these things to me, and I just happened to once again stumble upon a random quote by Joe Citro in his book Passing Strange about Pukwudgies, and then started doing research, and there was no information out there about them at that time. But they are these crazy paranormal things that are known to sneak up on people. They're usually, what happens, the situation is you find one in the woods, you stumble upon it, and then it comes back days later to where you live, or someplace where you are alone, and kind of just makes its presence known.
So you could stumble on this thing in the woods, right? So you're just merry walking around. You come across this little gremlin-like creature. You leave it. You walk away, or what have you. It'll come to your house afterwards.
Yeah, and it's
you went on its land. He can go on yours.
What the hell? Has he got a GPS in his pocket? How the hell does he know where you live? It lives.
You're talking about something that defies even paranormal description. You're trying to put rules on it, like GPS.
Well, I'm just saying.
He's a mythical being.
Joel is very judgmental in this fashion.
And I wonder why the people see these things, but they can't snap a picture of it. Come on.
They run very fast and follow you on your drive home. They run behind the car.
It's like
jump in the trunk. Jump in
they
the
use
trunk.
Pukwudgie power to. No, I mean it's first of all, it's not new. You know, these are leprechauns. These are any number of fairy type creatures that appear in the folklore of pretty much every civilization. They just have a really cool name in New England, you know. And
I love Pukwudgie.
Do they try to lure you into the woods with them? I mean, is that because judging by the one gentleman in the movie saying he was walking his dog, we want you. Was that a lure?
Cora.
They were trying to get him into the woods with them.
You know, it's the one that is in the documentary is unusual for various reasons, which is interesting because that debate, since that movie came out, the debate has been, is that a Pukwudgie? Is it not a Pukwudgie? For the most part, there are that you stumble upon them, they make their presence known, they intimidate you, you never go back to where you saw it, and everything is done. And yet there are historical and, anecdotal accounts of them luring you into a place, including me. Like the very first time, even before I knew what a Pukwudgie was, I was in a haunted location, which I now know by descriptions of other people has Pukwudgies in it, and we were drawn into the woods. We were basically being lured into the woods at that point. So they seem to have, now, because of the name, because of the abilities that they have, because of the imagination kind of being sparked by it, Pukwudgies have taken off, right? There's Pukwudgie beer. J.K. Rowling made one of the houses of the American Hogwarts Pukwudgie, right? And there's a whole thing about the Pukwudgie is the first person to come upon the first witch in America, which helps her out, which is why it's like this very influential thing. They're huge, and people. I go online. And I look at what people are physically describing a Pukwudgie like, and I'm like, how did they get that? Like, there's no, porcupine shooting quills at people. Like, these are, these claws and this vicious face, and none of that stuff is in the lore. But because people have an imagination, because they have these paranormal experiences, because they have these fears, which kind of can be filtered through the Pukwudgie, it really becomes this kind of like create your own monster, and people will take the Pukwudgie and run with it.
Barring the ninja like shoot quills Pukwudgie, What is the standard encounter like that you've heard from people that seem to be credible?
Exactly what I just said. They're in the woods for one reason or another. They stumble upon it. It disappears almost as immediately when they see it. I always use the case of Joan, and Joan hates me for this, which is why she hasn't talked to me in about a decade. She's then asleep, I think it's 4 or 5 nights later, and she's kind of stirred awake, and she looks, and the Pukwudgie is at her window just staring at her.
Oh, no way.
And the way that she described it was, the way she described it was giving a look, you might know where you saw me, but I definitely know where to find you. Also, by the way, she's on the 2nd floor. So, that is the report. Working on Dark Woods, I had 3 reports that were almost, at least in theme, identical to that. One of them takes place in a parking lot. He sees the Pukwudgie looking at him in the rearview mirror in kind of like an abandoned parking lot that he's kind of just blowing off steam at days after he saw one in the woods. That's the standard encounter that happens, although the other ones are reported from time to time.
Now, these are flesh and blood creatures when they see them, right? They're tangible beings.
Yeah, they have the ability to both disappear. So Aaron's going to hate this. So the Pukwudgie that I encountered when I was actually in Indiana transformed itself into a deer and took off. So they have the ability, whether they do it mystically or by transforming, which I guess is also mystically. They can't be caught. They just kind of find ways to escape, but they are something that is tangible. And yet they seem to be able to turn into ether when they need to. That's why they're so undefinable.
I was just thinking to myself, in this current climate of conceal and carry, Pukwudgie better be careful.
Oh, please. The hunters of this day and age wouldn't be able to. They can barely hit a deer, let alone a Pukwudgie.
The whole Pukwudgie lore has taken off to such a degree, maybe in part to the documentary or the fact that that Bill Russo, the guy that we interviewed, actually went on to be featured on a couple of other television shows, including Monsters and Mysteries in America, to tell his story. But the town of Freetown has kind of embraced the whole thing because it's such a connection between the Pukwudgies and the Freetown State Forest. So they actually put up a Pukwudgie crossing sign near the entrance to the Freetown State Forest. And sad because people got a big kick out of it, and then, of course, somebody stole it.
Yeah.
So the sign's not there. But it went viral when the Freetown Police Department put the Pukwudgie crossing sign near the entrance to the Freetown State Forest.
So the Pukwudgie is kind of like the official, unofficial mascot of the Bridgewater Triangle, I guess.
I would say prior, before starting all this, that Bigfoot was kind of the mascot for the triangle, but I think now it's definitely the Pukwudgie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Has anyone been harmed to your knowledge by these Pukwudgies, or is it just all scare tactics up to this point?
No, there's been harm. I was referring earlier to Vale End, which is actually in New Hampshire. New England-wise, far away from the Bridgewater Triangle. And, there were several attacks, like physical assaults, that were reported. If you know Fiona Broom, this was on her original website, Hollow Hill. Mm-hmm. She had documented several different people who had been assaulted and physically attacked, and one who had mysteriously died days after that she attributed to it. So for a long time before they became popular, she had the first postings, and when I described a Pukwudgie to her, she was like, "That's actually it. That's you've kind of defined what is at that cemetery." But she took that down for years and didn't put up till fairly recently, a few years ago, because people were actually getting physically attacked at that cemetery.
Wow. So it is more than just scare tactics.
Did they deserve it? I mean, did they go in there because looking for the Pukwudgie and being a douchebag?
No, there are 2 other famous hauntings in that cemetery, and the people were going to experience those. Now, one of those involves a glowing headstone, and so people were known to go in there and chip the headstone so they could study the glowing aspect of it, like not being in a cemetery at midnight. And so you could make an argument that they were defending that, but definitely not directly. Like they weren't. The people didn't know what Pukwudgies were, so people weren't going in to hunt them.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was a little bit of revenge, if I were just, for desecration.
Yeah, and you do find the people who report puckwudgies in cemeteries as opposed to in wooded areas generally define them as being more aggressive, which is why, like I said earlier, I think that there are different species of things that are puckwudgies that fall under this umbrella term that are just little monsters.
Yeah.
And so the term is really kind of connected, but even Native American tribes swapped, even into Minnesota, swapped that term puckwudgie because they didn't have a common language. And so the term puckwudgie, which I believe the Algonquins had come up with, caught with the other tribes as well. And they brought those stories of puckwudgies back with them to their other parts of the country.
Well, we got to get out of here. I want to thank you both for coming on the show and talking with us. Aaron Cadieux, he's got a great film out there. Check it out. It's on Amazon Prime right now, Bridgewater Triangle. Check it out. Click that play button. You're really going to enjoy it. It is.
You will.
It is a great documentary. I'm not.
Oh, thank you very much.
I have a hard time with some documentaries holding my attention. This one, I never checked my watch once. Let's just put it that way. It was so good.
That's the best compliment we can get on that film.
It held my attention. And also, Chris here has a great podcast out there, Tripping on Legends, and you can actually hear it right here on our network, After Hours AM radio network on Spreaker, but all sorts of different places, including Apple Podcasts, everywhere else, wherever you get your podcast, you're going to run to Chris whether you like it or not. Till next time, guys, take care of each other. Love
Thanks,
each other.
Chris. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for having us on.
Look out for those puckwudgies, and remember, they're not here to help you. I guess they're just here to give you a nice hug. Not really. They're just here to kill you. See you guys. After Hours AM is a production of Midwest Radio Productions. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And please visit www.americas-most-haunted.com.